I'm bringing this up on the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit later on here on the program. But I got to tell you, the home plate umpire, I thought had a really, really bad day yesterday. I mean, how many times were pitches challenged? Brian Walsh, the home plate umpire, he had a bad day yesterday. He was bad. And I'm telling you right now, he isn't my good, bad. He's in the bad category. And that's coming up a little bit later on at 5:30. We're on the air at 6 o'clock on this beautiful overreaction Monday. All right,
yes, it is.
Yes, it is, Coach. And I'm sure, Coach Bowles, you saw what Baker Mayfield said over the weekend. So Baker had a football camp out in Oklahoma. And I think this one was more of, I don't want to say is subdued. Maybe it was subdued because the football camp that he had here at the indoor facility, where he made the comments that, hey, you know what, we're a ways away. When he was asked about the contract, we're nowhere close. So he had really more of an irritated type of front when he was asked about his contract. And that part kind of seeped through at the mini camp, and I was there when he was asked about the contract and the question about maybe durability. Did that come up in your contract negotiations or talks?
You're trying to stir
Well, look, you're the one who said it. Like, I didn't ask the question. I did want to ask him a question. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to ask it. And the question I wanted to ask Baker was about his deadline. Are you flexible on the deadline thing? Because guess what? We're a month away from training camp starting up. And it's going to be here before you know it. So do we have 1 month to get this deal done or not? Or are you amenable to maybe pushing that deadline back if talks go in a positive direction? And I said that, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. I think Baker needs to be flexible on his self-imposed deadline for getting a deal done. But is Baker maybe changing course or softening his position or stance? Here's Baker Mayfield over the weekend when he was asked about the updated talks between he and the Buccaneers.
I would love to be there. I think both sides want to get it done. Now it's a matter of finding that middle ground and what makes both sides happy. But we've, like I fell in love with Norman, our family. We fell in love with Tampa, and it's a great place to raise kids and be around. So regardless of what happens, I think we'll spend our off seasons there. Obviously, it's a little brutally hot, but it's good for training. But I want to be there long term. They've treated me right, and it's the first place I've gotten to that feels like Oklahoma when it comes down to football is football. How can they put you in the best position to have success on the field, and how can they give their resources to help you out? And so it's a great place.
So that's Baker Mayfield from over the weekend. So I went back and I saw the comments, and then I watched it a couple of more times. And here's my honest takeaway from what I just heard. I believe that there is progress being made between Baker and the Buccaneers. That's how I interpreted those comments. Because Baker was very positive. He said, look, this is where I want to be. I love it here. We got a good thing going. We're trying to find a middle ground, and we know how negotiations go. And I know firsthand, for better or for worse, because management will come in and they're going to denigrate you. They're going to diminish you. They're going to insult you. Even though they should know and appreciate the value you bring to them and their company. And Baker Mayfield has certainly done that for the Buccaneers. 27-24. He's played in every game. He has showed his toughness. He has won some football games. Now, last year, I think because he was less than 100% down the stretch, I think his health was compromised, and that affected his play. You saw that in 2021 when he was with the Browns, and he had the shoulder issue. That affected his play. And maybe that affected the Browns' evaluation of the player. But when I heard those comments, that led me to believe that I think there's progress being made. I think there was a counteroffer by Baker, and then the Buccaneers are probably coming across the table saying, okay, if you're willing to do this, we're willing to do this. So I think you saw some positive signs over the weekend. And those comments from Baker were a sign to me that I think they're getting somewhere. And I think there's a realistic chance that maybe a deal gets done. Now, I've said many, many times, okay, and I said last week that I think the number Baker needs to be fixated on. Look, I think $50 million a year is probably going to be right there in the strike range, in the strike zone. 50, $52 million a year. But I think the number that is more important to Baker, who's 31 years old and likes to play through some injuries, through some ailments, showing his toughness, I think $100 million guaranteed at least is the number that he should be fixated on. Whether it's a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal at 50, 51, $52 million a year, $100 million guaranteed, that is the most important number. That is the most important number, not just to Baker Mayfield, but to any NFL player who's looking for that life-changing, transformational type of contract. And that's a contract that Baker is looking for. Now, look, he's playing out a 3-year, $100 million deal. So, look, he's not going to be lining up for food stamps, okay, at some point. He is obviously financially secure, but business is business. And this is something that a lot of fans don't understand. And fans, on the text platform, this guy's a bum. He doesn't deserve the money. That's what I expect people who don't know the inner workings of how this works from a negotiating standpoint, from a business standpoint. People are going to say that. And you can't compare your situation to that of Baker Mayfield. It's not even close. So that's how the business works. You want to be paid fair market value based on what other players, what other performers, by the way, of reasonable and relatable type of talent and production are putting forth. And that's how Baker is looking at it. He's looking at it like, right now, I'm 16th. Am I the 16th best quarterback in the NFL? The answer is no. I think he's probably somewhere in the 10, 11, 12. I think he's 10 to 12, somewhere in that range. I don't think he's a top 7 guy. But you can make a point that back in 2024, obviously, he played at a top 5 level. Is that the real Baker, though? Can the Buccaneers recreate that kind of magic? With Zach Robinson, an experienced play caller, and the O-line's got to stay healthy, but the O-line, when healthy, it's probably a top 5 group. And the running backs, the receivers, the tight ends, I think that talent is there too. Now, I'm not saying Baker Mayfield's going to go for 4,500 yards and 40-plus touchdowns with a completion percentage north of 70%, but if he performs at that high of a level, you're talking about a top 5 quarterback in this league. He's not. Okay, I think we could all agree to that. I think Baker privately would agree to that, as well as his agent. But I think if he's 10, 11, 12, guess what? He's $52 million. He's Justin Herbert range, okay? But again, the number is probably $100 million guaranteed. That is something that if I'm Baker Mayfield and that gets presented to me, whether it's a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal, I have to seriously consider taking that deal. Because that is where it's at. Ultimately, yeah, the per-year annual average is important, and the years are important somewhat, but because all these contracts aren't fully guaranteed outside of the idiotic deal that the Browns gave to Deshaun Watson, guaranteed money is where it's at, folks. How much am I going to put in my pocket without question, no matter what else happens? And that's what Baker Mayfield needs to be thinking about at the age of 31. But it feels like and sounds like progress is being made. That's how I interpreted those comments. I think they're getting somewhere. And they've got a month, according to Baker's timeline, to get something done. Again, if I'm Baker, I'm flexible on that. You know what? We're making a lot of progress. First day of training camp when he addresses the media. If the deal isn't done, I think we're close. So I think we're going to continue to talk for another week or two. Look, training camp is a grind, dude. July the 28th is going to be here before you know it. The first game is until early September. You play a couple of stupid preseason games in between. The dog days of training camp, where you're sweating your arses off. I was going to say something else. But if you're close, keep talking. Who the hell cares? Through the first week or two of training camp. Because you're not going to put the kibosh on a deal if you're like 75, 80% there, and then you get to July 12th, oh, I'm not talking. No. And I think Baker's a smart guy. He's not going to do that either. He's not. Why would you? If you're close, keep at it. I think Jason Light wants to get a deal done. I think the Glazers want to get a deal done. They want it under their own terms. And look, I think the Bucs have the ultimate hammer with the last resort being the franchise tag. But the Bucs have to ask themselves this. If Baker Mayfield continues to stay healthy, and he's played every single game ever since he got here, with the talent around him, if he hits it out of the park the way he did it in 2024, is that possible? Yes, it's possible. Yes, I think he's talented enough. I think there's enough talent around him. Zach Robinson being a proven play caller, a guy who's really good friends with Liam Cohen. If they run something similar to a Liam Cohen type of offense, yeah, it's possible that Baker could put up those numbers. Then all of a sudden, you're willing to pay him $50 to $52 million. That number is going to be 60 after the season. So the Buccaneers have to think about that too. So it's an interesting cat and mouse game, and that's what negotiating is all about. It's negotiating. They're not doing Costanza negotiating. And I'm not about to do that either, by the way. 888-388-0957. Text at 82945. So a lot of interesting talk with Baker and the Buccaneers. Will they get a deal done? When you heard those comments, how did you interpret them? We'll talk to Brian Anderson. He interpreted a lot of different things over the weekend. He'll join us at 4:05. We've got the good, the bad, and the ugly at 5:30. We're on the air at 6 o'clock as well. All right, on the way back, a heartbreaking story that took place today. We'll get into the NFL coming your way next.